So in today's video, I want to give you 10 key tricks to writing the middle of your manga, comic, or light novel, and how to get unstuck if you are feeling a little bit lost at that point. My first tip is add a new character. Sometimes if you're feeling a bit stuck in the middle of your story, it can be really helpful to add a new character to maybe switch things up or turn things around a bit. My second tip is turn the story in a completely different direction. If you're unsure of where the story should go next, sometimes it can really help if you turn the story in a completely different direction, maybe one that even you have not thought about before. My third tip is change the setting. If you're feeling a bit stuck in the middle of your story, it may be because you haven't actually changed the setting or location in a while. For example, if your story is set in a school environment for most of the time, you might begin to run out of ideas where you've already told a lot of the stories in that same location. When it comes to this part, it can be helpful to try taking your characters out of that situation and putting them somewhere else where there may be more room for storytelling opportunities. So think about how you can take your characters out of the current setting and put them somewhere else, and that might help you to get more ideas and a fresh perspective on your story that you may not have had before. My fourth tip is make a drastic event happen. One thing I say a lot on this channel is that if your characters have problems, it means your characters are always working towards a solution. The only time when there really should be no problems in your story is near the end when you're tying things up. But throughout the story, your characters always need a problem to solve because that is what keeps your characters moving forward. Creating a drastic event in your story is one way you can really turn things around and help yourself get unstuck. So really think about what could happen to your characters or what could happen in the story that could be really unexpected and turn things in a new direction. These drastic events can force your characters into action, and it can also help your audience to understand more about these characters and why they make certain decisions in your story. My fifth tip is know the ending and work backwards. This can be very helpful if you know how you want your story to end, but you're kind of stuck in the middle. Sometimes one thing I like to do when writing stories is know where the end point is and then think about what scenes need to happen in order to reach that ending. You might write a few plot points or dot notes about what you need to happen to get to that ending point, and then you can sort of work backwards and begin to understand what needs to happen in the middle part. When you do this, it can also help to create an ending that makes more sense because you have spent the time working towards that ending. When writing a story, there are many times when you may think that you need to work in order of the story. You need to go from the beginning, the middle, and then the end. But that's really not true at all. You don't need to do that. If you feel more inspired for a scene at certain points in the story, then that is where your attention should go. Because I really find that in my personal process, when I feel really inspired about a certain scene and I focus my attention on that, sometimes I end up coming up with new ideas that I hadn't thought about before. And I may end up creating new scenes based on that scene that can really take the story in a new direction and help me to consistently come up with fresh creative ideas. My sixth tip is give your characters an opportunity. Think about where your characters are at in the story, and maybe there's some kind of opportunity you could give your characters, either related to school or work. Maybe there is a dream that they are really wanting to follow and you give them an opportunity for that, or maybe something happens that really pushes them in the right direction. This is like giving your characters a drastic event, except in a more positive note. You need to think about where your characters are at and really what positive event or opportunity could happen that could push them in a certain direction. However, maybe because of this positive opportunity, for example, your character may have an opportunity related to their dream job. Maybe because of this, maybe they are unsure of what decision to make. They could go, well, I could make this decision here to go towards my dream job, but if I do this, this thing might happen. So it forces your characters to problem solve and think about where they are at now and where they want to be in the future. My seventh tip is put your characters in a difficult or challenging situation. As I mentioned before, by giving your characters problems, it means that it forces your characters into action. So when you put your characters into difficult moments, it can help you to get unstuck when you're stuck in the middle part of your story. So think about what problems you can create for your characters and how that can force your characters to make decisions. If you're feeling stuck in the middle point of your story, consider what challenges you may give your character in order to help those characters develop further. You might be feeling stuck because the characters haven't had enough significant character development. So by putting your characters through challenges, this actually forces you to show the character development and show how your character gets through these tough situations or helps the people around them. My 8th tip is write down the scenes you already know. Through writing your story, you may already have a lot of ideas and scene ideas that you have for the middle point of your story, but the reason you might be stuck is you are unsure of how to actually get to those scenes. So my advice would be to write down the scenes you already know and already plan on having, and then try and slot in some scenes in order to make those parts work. One technique you could try is you could try writing down those scene ideas onto little slips of paper, and then you could try and just organize them. Place those scenes in certain orders and see what order is best to tell those scenes in. And then from there, you can think about where you may need to add certain scenes, where you may need to include character development, or where you may need to add certain moments in order to help those scenes make sense. In a way, you can sort of use those scenes as your main point and then try and work backwards from those scenes to figure out what scenes you need to include to get to those points. This is a technique I like to use a lot when I'm writing my stories. I like to start with a scene I already know that I want to include, and then from there, if I write that scene or work on that scene a bit more, it can help me to understand what needs to happen before that scene or after that scene in order to help give it a place in the story. My 9th tip is understand your story at its core. Knowing the major themes and the messages that you really want to get across in your story might help you to get unstuck. You may be feeling lost in the middle point because your story might be losing what really makes that story special and the reason why you wanted to tell that story in the first place. If you want to create a certain theme or message in your story, it might be helpful to understand why you are creating it and what meaning you want to have behind that story before you continue writing it. And when you come to understand that, maybe you'll get a better idea of how you should tell your story and what way you should write it. By getting to the core and the heart of your story, you can better understand how you can translate that meaning through your art and through your writing. And my 10th tip is brainstorm and ask yourself, what if? Try and write down many ideas, even if those ideas or scenes may not happen, and keep asking yourself, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? And write down all of those different ideas, even if none of those scenes would happen or if none of those scenes make sense. Because sometimes when asking yourself what if and allowing yourself to have those creative ideas, you might come up with some interesting ideas that you may not have thought about before. And then once you have a good amount of different ideas that you've just brainstormed through using this technique, you can then go through those ideas and consider what ideas would work in your story or what ideas could be combined to create a better idea. And just as a bonus tip before I end this video, try putting yourself in the shoes of your character. When you are feeling stuck in the middle point of your story, you might be feeling uncertain because you're looking at it from your perspective as the writer. But sometimes if you are able to put yourself into the role of your character and try and see the world through their eyes, you may have a better idea of where to go next. When I'm doing this, I sometimes like to listen to music that reminds me of the character and just allow myself to daydream and think about myself in that character's position. And when I do this, it can help me to see that world through my character's eyes and better understand what decisions they would make in that moment. So thank you so much for watching my video today, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know how you like to get unstuck when you're writing the middle part of your story, because I would really like to hear your thoughts and suggestions. Please feel free to chat with me on any of my social media at @MinnoysCross because I always enjoy hearing from you. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!